Imagine a human being completely stripped of all social structures. No laws, no community, no language. In the wild, an isolated human is entirely defenseless. Over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Aristotle observed this vulnerability and formulated a core axiom of political science. Man is, by nature, a political animal. Aristotle argued that human beings are biologically and logically wired to organize into a polis, the ancient Greek word for a city-state. Ancient Greeks viewed the polis as the total integrated social and cultural life of the community, encompassing everything from education and religious worship to law and safety. According to Aristotle, participating in this political community is the defining characteristic of the human species. Anyone who can exist completely outside of it must be either a beast or a god. Aristotle viewed the state as the indispensable engine designed to secure the good life, a condition of moral and intellectual flourishing. Yet, his ideal state relies on strict natural hierarchies, excludes the vast majority of people from power, and views absolute democracy with deep suspicion. To understand this paradox, we must suspend modern democratic assumptions and reconstruct his political system from the ground up. We can map this system by examining three distinct pillars: the organic theory of the state, the principle of proportional justice, and the matrix of constitutions. Analyzing this architecture reveals how a logically rigorous system can be built to justify deeply uncomfortable inequalities. The organic theory of the state posits that the state is a natural organism, growing inevitably out of human need. This diagram illustrates a counterintuitive claim. The state is logically prior to the individual. The whole dictates the parts. Like a human body, a severed hand can no longer perform its function. Similarly, an isolated individual loses their capacity to function as a human. Every natural organism has a teleology, an ultimate built-in purpose. The state evolves in two steps. It comes into existence for physical survival and continues to exist for the sake of moral excellence. In this architecture, the state functions as the biological and moral ecosystem required for human growth. The second pillar is proportional justice. For the state to achieve moral excellence, it requires a system to allocate benefits, burdens, and political power. This scale represents how Aristotle defined justice through a famous maxim: treating equals equally and treating unequals unequally. He used this precise logic to defend the institution of ancient slavery, claiming that from the hour of birth, certain humans are naturally marked out for subjection, while others are equipped with the virtue to rule. Modern political science approaches this by separating Aristotle's normative logic, his structural definition of justice, from his empirical data, meaning his actual observations of human capability. While we wholly reject his empirical assumption that humans are naturally unequal, his underlying normative framework, that justice requires balancing allocation based on relevant criteria, remains a core concept in political theory. A perfectly logical equation will still produce abhorrent results if the baseline data fed into it is corrupted by societal bias. Because Aristotle built his state on the assumption of natural inequality, he restricted the definition of citizenship. Citizenship was an exclusive privilege reserved for the ruling class of freemen. Slaves, aliens, and women were entirely excluded. Today, we generally view citizenship as a legal status focused on passive rights and state protections. The ancient Greek view focused on active participation. For Aristotle, citizenship required direct participation in the exercise of state power, the administration of justice, and the military defense. Aristotelian citizenship required a rigorous, demanding performance of duty to keep the social organism alive. Aristotle's typology of constitutions classifies governments by who rules and in whose interest. Right constitutions serve the common good: monarchy, aristocracy, and polity. Perverted constitutions serve selfish class interests: tyranny and oligarchy. Finally, rule by the many for selfish interest is democracy. He defined pure democracy as a perversion because it represents the rule of the poor majority, using their numbers to pursue their own class interests against the wealthy minority. He warned that democracies are prone to a false assumption of absolute equality. This is the notion that because men are equally free under the law, they should possess exactly equal political power and wealth. For Aristotle, pure democracy is a destabilizing force. It sacrifices merit to raw numbers. leaving the state vulnerable to manipulation by clever politicians. Despite this harsh critique, Aristotle did not entirely dismiss the masses. He offered a powerful epistemic defense of the collective many. This map of overlapping connections illustrates emergent collective judgment. While individuals in a crowd may lack specialized education, collectively they can form a highly accurate judgment. He illustrated this with a practical analogy. The guest eating a meal is a better judge of the feast than the cook who prepared it. Likewise, the person who lives in a house evaluates its quality better than the architect who built it. Applied to the state, this means the citizens who use the government and live under its laws are uniquely qualified to judge its effectiveness. Collective intelligence can outshine, or at least validate, individual elitist expertise. Aristotle observed that in pure forms of government, power and virtue cannot easily coexist. His solution to this constant constitutional instability was the mixed constitution. The optimal state combines the merits of aristocracy, which elevates ability and virtue, with the merits of democracy, which leverages collective judgment and the power of numbers. Many of Aristotle's specific prescriptions, like defending slavery and excluding women from public life, are obsolete artifacts of ancient Greek society. But his analytical framework survives. We still evaluate modern institutions by their purpose, by whether they have been captured by class interests, and by their ability to serve the common good. We no longer accept Aristotle's data on who gets to be equal, but we are still living inside the logical architecture he built to govern those equals.